Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Learning, Leading Now. I am your host, Renee Phillips, Director of Communication for Mobile County Public Schools, joined by our co-host,
Mike Herndon, Public Relations Specialist for Mobile County Public Schools.
And our special guest of the day,
Tonya Parker from Baker High School, High Q coach.
Extraordinaire. And so on this podcast, we talk about education, we talk about Mobile County Public Schools, and one thing is we are employees of MCPSS, but we're all parents also. So we like to talk to our parents about things happening in our schools. I have 2 middle school boys, so there's never a dull moment in our house. And Mike, you have someone's about to graduate.
High school senior at Davidson, so we're about to be empty nesters, but enjoying the last year while it lasts.
Yeah, special time, right?
Absolutely.
And you've done it with one, so it's not as...
Yes, have a junior in college at Alabama Huntsville, and this one is going to Auburn. So
Iron Bowl is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm outnumbered in my house. I graduated from Alabama, and my wife graduated from Auburn. Her whole family graduated from Auburn, and both the kids actually root for Auburn. I have to remind my oldest that she is actually in the University of Alabama system, but she doesn't.
They don't feel like they are, huh?
Care about that. Yeah.
She's like, no, we're UAH.
Yeah.
Right? The Chargers.
The
Chargers. From my
Chargers.
hometown of Huntsville. And then Tonya, you're a mom.
I am.
So tell us about your son.
My son is 18 and he has special needs. And normally, if he were in school, he's homebound right now, he would be at Evans. Mm-hmm. And he's just great. He's awesome. But he's still getting a lot of good things at home, even with his homebound program. In fact, the teacher that teaches him on his homebound program was the one that taught him when he was in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade.
Oh, wow.
So it came back around full circle. And she's probably one of the best special ed teachers in this system. Tracy Malinowskis, she's phenomenal.
So has he been at Evans his whole school career?
No, he spent up through the 5th grade, he was in O'Rourke. Mm-hmm. And then for middle school, we transitioned him over to Evans.
Isn't it a special place? I love
is.
Augusta Evans.
Miss Kidd is amazing. She's a great principal, and all of his teachers were very understanding. We had a few little snafus. They had to move him out of the kitchen class, whatever they call it now, but because he got into the knife drawer, so then he became a professional bead sorter.
Oh, yeah.
So that was his specialty, was sorting beads. So if you've been to Mardi Gras, you probably have had a bead that Josh Parker touched.
And
so
that is a great program, and I think it's actually coming up. But at Mardi Gras, you save your beads. You basically take in about a grocery bag full of beads, and you get donuts. It's a great partnership where Krispy Kreme gets involved, and then the kids sort them.
Yes. And they also actually wrap the utensils for some of the restaurants around here. I know Nukes gets their utensils from Evans, from the kids doing that. That's one of their work programs.
I didn't know that.
So
didn't either.
they really contribute
Yeah.
quite a bit around here.
And it's a good job skills that they're learning, or just doing some of
Yes.
those things that are, a routine, right? They like doing those, and
Yes.
such an opportunity. I know I went to the graduation ceremony is always special, and I went a couple years ago, and a student spoke, and she had been working at a local bookstore, and just what she was able to talk about what she had learned at Evans and putting it out into the real world.
Right.
So such a great place.
Yes.
Well,
And
good.
Special kids needs places like that. So.
Yes, they do. And I don't know if you've seen this, but Mobile County Public Schools is also working with several different organizations, including the Schmidt family, to build a ball field for students with special needs out in West Mobile.
Yes.
I know Mike has been out there. So what a neat place, huh?
Yes, it's going to be something else for kids out there, and just modeled, I think, after they have a couple of these in other places, but certainly will fill a need and be a special place for these kids in need. Absolutely.
Yeah, we say we're building a miracle in West Mobile, but it's part of the Miracle League, and the Schmidt family, the county commission's involved, South Alabama Utilities, Alabama Pecan, just donating land, and the school system just approved of a contract. So we're actually going to start seeing some construction out there, which is a good thing.
Exciting.
Yeah, and then a playground for children with special needs.
Yeah, the whole ballpark thing is pretty neat how they're going to do it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it finally come into fruition.
Oh yeah, with the rubber field and all that, and we're lucky we get to play a role in that in the Office of Communication because we're helping to promote it. So, but yeah, super cool stuff. Sports is up your alley, Mike.
Absolutely.
So, Tonya, tell us about what do you do at Baker?
I teach film, study of film, which is an English elective. I taught English for probably my first 5 years, and then Mr. Butler retired, and film came open, and I am absolutely a film nut. I love everything about film, and so I inherited study of film 1, I developed film 2, and then we even developed a film production class, but it's been phased out in the last couple of years, but I love everything film. So, and then of course I teach just over the past couple of years, we were able to do a high Q and Scholars Bowl class, which has really, really helped us with our program. So, but that's basically what I do every day.
Well, your program has certainly been successful
Yes.
with the high Q. Tell us a little bit about that. 4 in a row state championships now.
Well, it's a team effort. In fact, I read the kids today what I'd written in reflecting on this about a quote from Jungle Book: "The strength of the wolf is the pack. The strength of the pack is the wolf." And it's not an individual sport, even though you have these outstanding players like the Will McCurleys and the Will Sims and the Henry Balanowskis that are, just they're powerhouses. But you have to have a whole team to back them up. It is a team sport. And each person contributes in one way or another. Some of them are more visual, and we see them better, but then everybody is contributing ultimately to it. So, and it was amazing this year because we did feel the loss of Will leaving. We had won 3 years in a row, retired the Loving Cup. And I was a little nervous about not having him with us, which he has come to a lot of our games. He's been very supportive, and he mentored Henry and several of the other kids, and we felt the benefit of that, of passing that down. In fact, Henry is now mentoring some of the freshmen and trying to pass that on. He'll be a senior next year. And so I think that is their strength, is that they are nurturing each other and that they do have each other's back. And you can't criticize any of them because they will all stand up for each other. So
That's the teamwork.
that
right?
is teamwork. They are a very, very solid team, and it's a lot of work. They put long hours into preparing for it and studying and restudying, because high Q is one of those things that you have the set material, but then, and there's so many areas, but you have to go back and review it constantly to keep it. So, but they put a lot of work into it.
And that's, I think, one of the areas that it differs from Scholars Bowl, right? Is you actually, it tests your study habits as much as your knowledge.
Exactly. They have to learn time management skills and reading and, intensively and making sure they're not missing things and even new stuff, because like with each match, we would have a current event question from Time, and Will Sim would read the entire magazine cover to cover and, make his little points. He had his little, his little practices that he does. And, but that was something that they would only get about a week in advance. And so some teams, I've had teams in the past that would break that up and divide it up. But he was one of those that if he read it, he had it. And so he would devote himself to that, which was another one of our strengths, is we had, players that would step up and absorb some of that, that workload, so that the other kids didn't have to, put that on their plate as well. So,
So I did Scholars Bowl in high school.
Right.
So I love this. So Scholars Bowl would be more like a Jeopardy, right? Like
Jeopardy
it can all
on
be
crack.
random. Yeah, it could just be
Yes.
random things. You don't know. It could be history, science, all that. But math, I don't think they really do math on Jeopardy. But then high Q is different because they have certain things and topics that they must study. Is that in certain books to read? Is that what it is?
That's
or?
correct. They have the current event. They have, as far as the things that they actually have to study, it would be things like American government, set chapters in that, world history, American history. They give them 4 authors every time, and then there's like maybe 4 or 5 stories from each author.
Is Shakespeare always one?
Shakespeare is always a category, and under Shakespeare you have 4 plays that you have to deal with.
Uh-huh.
So these kids are having to read like 4 plays within 3 or 4 months, and I don't know many college students that deal with that many, and all the details they may ask you something from the footnote of that play. And then one of the big problem areas is science, because they just give you general science. So the disadvantage of these younger kids coming into play, I know now they've got like Barton competing, and those kids have not had chemistry or physics. Mm-hmm. And they're just asking you general questions. They don't give you chapters on that. You just have to know the physics and know the chemistry, and that's difficult. So there is a lot of material in art history. They have at least probably 50 to 70 pages just on art history. Mm-hmm. So it's very comprehensive, very, very comprehensive. But also, like you said, it is coming from study materials. So
does everyone study all of it, or do you kind of divide it up?
We divide it up. We have specialists. We have people that are the science people. Emma was our literature person, and she knew the literature backwards and forwards. She knew every detail, and most of them will do the math because they've had really good math at our school, so they can do the math, and but usually there are specialists that divide and conquer mentality, and then that determines also who plays which half, because you can only play 4 at a time. So they have to really diversify to a certain degree, because you can't devote one spot to a person if they're only studying one thing when you've got about 15 or 20 things that you've got to study. So
if we were doing a team, what sport, or what, I'm looking at you saying sports every
Sports.
time, but what category? So you're our English specialist.
I would do the literature and Shakespeare.
I like history. Sure. What would you do?
I'd be one of those, history or English. I would not be math or science.
Yeah.
Which is probably why we do what we do.
Yeah, we're communicators.
We're in the humanities. And if there's a sports category, then that'd be my wheelhouse. I was a sports writer for 23 years, so that would be in my wheelhouse. I always go for the orange pie in Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah.
That's my first go-to.
I think it's blue. Is blue history? I can't remember. I like the history
I think blue's
ones.
geography.
Yeah, I love geography too. Capitals and all that. So for fun, I watched part, and I want to do a plug here. So if you're interested in watching our Haiku matches, are they matches or meets? Matches. Then it would, MCPSS TV is there. We broadcast all of them. Yes. And I know Wade Ford has a good time covering that. He loves the Haiku season. And so I watched a match between Baker and Davidson and McGill-Tulane. And so I want to ask y'all some questions.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Oh, goodness.
What city became the first city to host both the Summer and Winter Olympics in 2022?
Goodness. I was too busy taking scores. I don't even remember.
2022.
You know what? It may be 2020. I may have written that down wrong.
It was in London, was it?
Nope.
Rio de Janeiro.
Nope.
I'm just thinking of places that had Olympics
I'm
recently.
thinking maybe somewhere in Japan or...
Close. Asia? China?
Seoul? Oh, China.
Beijing. How about this one? Aaron Judge I did not know this one at all. Aaron Judge became the new home run king when he hit his 62nd home run. What MLB team does he play for?
The Yankees.
I had no idea. You're correct. The Yankees. And these are questions that our kids got right during the match. I didn't know this one. Give the last name of the inventor from New Jersey who was dubbed the Wizard of Menlo Park.
Edison.
Yep. Yeah, that's easy.
That's film. That's in my film. He also made the first movie studio called the Black Mariah.
So
I did not know.
He has a house in Louisville, Kentucky, and we went there with my 2 boys because he lived there briefly. They had their world or national archery tournament up there, and it was neat. They had all his little movie sets that he made, and you could get a book that you could turn in and like flip the pages of and see the actual motion picture and stuff. So it was really neat when you see like the progression and everything he started with, and you get up to the radio or the record players and all that. He's amazing. I did not know this one because it's science. Name the raised areas on the surface of the tongue that are made of groups of taste buds.
Is it like papilla or something like that?
Close. Apilla. Yep. And then here's one that you'll know as a swim dad. At the 2020 Olympic Games, this swimmer won the gold medal in the 100-meter women's breaststroke and the silver medal in the 4x100-meter medley relay. Her gold medal was the first Olympic medal won by a swimmer from Alaska in the history of swimming in the Olympic Games.
I was going to say Lily King, but it's the girl that beat Lily King, and I can't think of her name.
Yes, Jacoby. There you go. There
Yeah.
you go. So fun stuff, and our kids know these things. Are you amazed when you watch this?
I am amazed. I am. And in fact, our sports question was one of our clutch questions in the final. It was about a golfer, and Mark got it, and he was so proud of himself. You could just see his face shining. So yeah, that was a proud mama moment.
Yeah.
So I was proud of them. But yeah, it's amazing what they can retain. Even just the biology, for instance, that it was the human anatomy, and which you read one of the questions. It's very detailed, and Henry wrote pages and pages of questions from that. And I don't even know how he remembered even just a small part of it, but
Yeah.
it was amazing.
Because some of those I couldn't tell what the topic was, because one was like what organ system has
Right.
this,
Very
and this,
detailed.
and what row element is a carbonate, something, limestone.
And I will say
calcium.
this.
Yeah, I was like, how is that related?
I will say this about that is some of this they can actually cross over and use in Scholars Bowl. Like the art history and the history, a lot of American history, some of this they can use again when they get to Scholars Bowl. So it is actually, they're getting good practice there as well.
So do you have students who play on both then?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Not play, compete.
Yes. Some prefer one over the other. The group that I have this year, with one exception, they prefer Scholars Bowl over high Q. Emma is my dedicated high Q person. She prefers that because she likes to study. She likes the predictability about it more as opposed to you just go in and it's the luck of the draw as far as what you get in Scholars Bowl. So.
So do you give them advice on how to study? Because I know as a parent, I've got the middle school kids, and it's about to get real in high school, right? And you've done that with your daughters, and
It started
and going into
getting real in
college.
middle school.
Yeah.
That's when they hit
yeah.
the math that Daddy couldn't help them with anymore. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But yes, high school ratchets that up, and then college is a whole other ball of yarn.
So how do we teach our kids to study?
Well, yeah, some advice and some they just have to kind of learn themselves. I mean, one of the things with this group is, or any of our groups, is that they have to write the questions, and some of them obviously are better question writers, which the question, as you read and you're writing, you're basically using the question to take a note with it and retain that information, and some are better than others. We have a couple of kids that struggle with the question writing format, and this is where the mentoring is very, very handy, because the stronger players can show the other ones that are struggling, this is how we do it, and then you start to see the level of questions and starting to come up, with that. So,
And that may be a good strategy for any student when they get that study
Right.
guide and they're reading their chapter, is to think, what question might my teacher ask on the test?
right. And yeah, they learn to distinguish what's the more important detail, and I mean, you can give them little clues. Like for government, my advice was to the student who was doing government was to go through and look for all the bolded words and then look at the charts, because a lot of times they'll pull from the charts because they're loaded with facts. So you can give them those little pointers, and then they start to retain that, and then in success, the next years, they'll start to do those things instinctively without having to be told. So, and then hopefully, and the hope is that they pass it down to the other players, like one kid mentoring another. So then they become teachers, basically. Mm-hmm. So that's ultimately the hope, is that they're fostering each other.
So mostly to learn to study, they need time management and time, right? Sit down and
Exactly.
read their chapter.
Which is the advantage to having the class.
Yeah.
I think that's one of our strengths, is that our principal does support us in that capacity, and he allows us to have that time, and not only just to do questions like with high Q, but to practice. And I've found that some groups do better when they practice the questions out loud, and then some do better just studying them. And the group I have right now, they're more of the study mentality. Mm-hmm. So they would rather sit and just, focus on their stuff, and that benefits them. So it's just different personalities and different strengths and what works with different kids. So.
Well, and I see that in my house. My boys are very different in how they approach things. What about you with your girls, Mike?
Yes. One of them's more self-motivated than the other. So One of them needs a little encouragement
Yeah.
to start studying. But it's not just the studying, I think, and I think you mentioned this with one of them, and the studying the current events. It's the retention.
Exactly.
To be able to retain everything
Right.
that you're reading is a little bit of a talent, I think. Wouldn't you say? I mean, is that
It
something you
is.
can learn?
Probably with practice, but some kids, I mean, it depends on like their memory, and I know some people have photographic memories. I imagine that the student who does that,
That's what it
I
sounded
suspect he has a photographic memory. And so it just depends. And then some of them just have to just keep going over and over and over. And you have oral learners. Our literature specialist, I would call the questions out to her every time. And she could tell me, but she benefited more. She was more social, so she wanted the oral interaction. And so it's just, you can't cookie cutter any child in a classroom, just like you can't cookie cutter any team member. They all have to work at their own pace, their own style, and ultimately they complement each other. And that's the beauty of the whole pack mentality and the team mentality, is that they are complementing each other. So
seems like a microcosm of education in general, isn't, kids don't all learn the same.
exactly.
Well, and like you said, too, knowing what type of learner you are. I have learned since I got to the school system that I'm a visual learner. So I like to see it written down or even writing it
Right.
down. I may never look at my notes ever again, but just the art of writing it down
Me
helps.
too. I am a visual learner. I'm a tactile and a visual. Mm-hmm. So,
And writing it to me just seems, I remember it better than if I type it.
right.
And our kids type so much, and they type fast, starting very young. They can do
do.
all that, and then
I've had people tell me that when you write something out, you're using a different part of the brain than when you're typing. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's interesting to think about.
Makes sense. So now you're heading to nationals.
We are. Next Friday, we will play Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, a team from Wisconsin, and a team from Washington State. So via Zoom. It will be a Zoom virtual competition. So
And you've done these before. In fact, won the whole thing a couple of years ago, right?
2021, we did. In the very last question, it was probably the closest game I've ever seen. It came down to the math question at the end, the math toss-up. And our typist, he was about to put in the answer, and Will McCurley was rerunning the math problem, and it was about a fly going one direction and coming back, and he's like, no, we didn't take into account that he was coming back. And the guy was just about to hit enter, and he stopped him. He was slow, and that slowness worked to our advantage, and then he changed it, and it was the correct answer.
Oh, wow.
And we won with the math questions.
Drama.
So it was a lot of drama. It was so exciting. But it was the first, not only our first win for the Nationals, it was the first time Alabama won
Yeah,
for the Nationals.
Wow.
The Nationals.
that is good. Because, and to math, when I was looking at these questions to give y'all, there were some math questions, and I couldn't even read them.
Don't do that
like,
to us.
sign this,
Don't do
and
that to
what's
me.
the blah,
No
blah, blah. I
math.
was like, I can't even comprehend the
No.
math. So,
Next question.
Yeah. But y'all, I know y'all are going to do really well at nationals, and it's something we can all be proud of in Mobile County when we see
Yes.
our students competing. And you've gotten to watch a couple of them, haven't
Got to
you?
watch them last year.
Yeah.
And you're doing it at Baker again this
We
year, I
are.
understand.
In our media center, we are.
So it's fun to watch. A lot of it goes over my head, but that just is a testament to how intelligent and how
Right.
what great studiers and students that they are.
They are.
So I want to hear, you mentioned earlier you have a film class. I want to hear more about that. And how lucky are those kids? Are they excited to go in there and take film?
You would be surprised at some who are not. And I'm like, you're in a film class.
I would have loved to have
awesome.
film in high school.
Oh yeah, it's great, and I approach it differently depending on if it's one or if it's two. One, we deal with, it is much more language arts centric, and we do themes, we do genre types, and we apply all that stuff to film. It's just like a book. I mean, actualized on screen. So, and then in two, we get more into the history. And in fact, we're doing George Lucas right now and his contribution. And every director and film that we do, we have to talk about why it's important. So we've done On the Waterfront. We've done, we did The Kid from Chaplin, and just a lot of really good stuff that they never would have watched in any other setting. and just makes them more cultured. I mean, and, you know, things that they need to know that, you know, like I said, they'll get nowhere else. But it's exciting. I love what I do every day.
So what movie do they like the best?
Let's see. They don't like the old movies. That's just
Understandable.
old to them is Star Wars, and I'm like, no, this is
what I was thinking when you said-
1977. This is not really that old. But
When you said George Lucas, that's what I was thinking, like Star Wars, but no.
Did the newer ones kind of update that for them, though? Did they watch those?
to a certain degree, but you know, you've got the purists that they want to go back and they like all the older stuff, and but I can't even. Probably as far as film one goes, our current favorite is the Peanut Butter Falcon, which stars a little guy who has Down syndrome, and it's a really neat story. The two guys that directed and wrote it actually wrote it for him because they met him at a special needs camp, and they wanted to write a movie because they knew that he was not mainstream Hollywood. No one would hire him. So they made the movie for him, and it's just an absolutely delightful movie, and all my kids love it.
Is he in it? Is he an
He
actor
stars in it.
Oh, cool.
They wrote it for him to star in, and Shia LaBeouf plays with him, you know, plays as his little traveling companion. And Shia LaBeouf even said of him, he said, he changed my life. He said he looks at everybody positively. He said, I would always go in with your glass half empty or empty. And he said he just looks at the world so differently. And it's an amazing movie. That's under our belonging theme, where we talk about people's differences. And I've had more kids open up. We do an essay about the theme, and they talk about different things. And I've had more kids open up about struggles that they have in trying to find their place in the world. And so it's really encouraging to me as a teacher when I can see more of my students and get more insight into them. And they also get to watch the films, which is the fun part, but it's more than that. And and I hope it never goes away, because it's really a great class and contributes a lot, in my opinion. So
That's great. Did you watch the Oscars?
I have not watched the Oscars this year.
I don't ever watch it. I just like seeing all the news the next day about all these movies that I'm not familiar with.
I am so behind, so I need to catch
The neat
up.
thing from the Oscars was that the director from Alabama, whose movie won everything, gave a shout out to his teachers in Birmingham, which was a
that's
very nice touch, I
awesome.
thought.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because y'all do make an impact every single day.
Absolutely.
So now when my kids are watching a movie and they say it's homework, might it be true?
It might be true. It might be true.
Unless it's Marvel. We love the
yeah.
Marvel movies and all that.
Yes, I have a Marvel aficionado in our household as well.
Yeah. And yeah, we just saw Ant-Man, and somebody told me it's like the 24th Marvel movie, so it's amazing how they can keep that going. But that is all the time that we have, so we're going to get going. But first, I want to thank you and congratulate
Thank you for having me.
Because what a great
Appreciate it.
feat. Your 4th national championship meet.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, good luck to Baker,
Absolutely.
you.
Good luck.
and we'll catch you next
Congratulations.
time on Learning Leading Now.
As a student in the Mobile County Public Schools, there are a few things I've come to expect. One is a quality education, and the other is a quality lunch. Not only are our school meals well balanced, meeting all federal nutritional standards, but they also have less fat, fewer calories, and they taste really good. Oh, and I forgot to mention, our school lunches contain whole wheat, grains, fruits, and vegetables to give me the energy and brain power to get me through the day.